Godzilla Minus One may potentially be one of the closest films in terms of tone and setting that we get to the original 1954 Godzilla, the film that gave us the first appearance of the King of the Monsters. It follows a Japanese kamikaze pilot who survives the war but is still fighting a war internally even after the dust has settled. And in the midst of his personal turmoil, Godzilla himself shows up to wreak havoc on coastal Japan. Why is it called Godzilla Minus One? Toho Films president Koji Ueda said in an interview that it is called Godzilla Minus One because it takes place in post-World War II Japan. So the country as a whole was at zero in terms of its rebuild from war, so adding in Godzilla at this time makes the country at minus one. Who is Shikishima and how does he encounter Godzilla? Koichi Shikishima is a Japanese kamikaze pilot who lands on an airstrip on a secluded island in Japan. There, he meets some crew to work on some maintenance on his plane. It is quickly noticed that nothing is wrong. He is just a pilot avoiding death in the final days of World War II prior to the Japanese surrender. On the island that night, Godzilla arrives. He's not as big as we know him to be, as his creation is still very early. But he stomps on and rips apart the entire airfield crew, leaving behind two survivors. One is the man in charge, Soke Tachibana, and the other is Shikishima. This incident kicked off his survivors' guilt for making it through the war. What happens to Shikishima after World War II? The rest of Godzilla Minus One takes place over the span of a few years after the atomic bomb and the rebuild of Japan post-World War II. Shikishima returns home, where he encounters a friend, Noriko Oishi. She has an orphaned baby with her due to the air raids. She sneaks into his life basically by never leaving his broken-down shack, which he eventually turns into a home for them. They never marry, but they raise the baby together. Akikyo and Shikishima give the little girl a life. Still, Shikishima is a bit of a lost cause, trying to navigate what seems like his PTSD. What does Shikishima do for work? In order to provide for his little family now, he finds work on a fisherman's boat that is tasked by the government to go destroy old mines left in the ocean during the war. Shikishima joins a crew of men who have not seen what he's seen, so therefore, when they encounter Godzilla in the ocean, it makes for a thrilling moment that also heightens the trauma that Shikishima is dealing with. With this encounter with the King of the Monsters, authorities are notified on land that there is a giant sea creature that is a threat to the country now. Does Godzilla destroy cities in Minus One? Would it be a Godzilla film if he didn't? Specifically, he attacks the section of Tokyo known as Ginza, known today as the city's big shopping district. And it is in this attack that Godzilla utilizes a dramatic heat ray attack that levels the city once again, and making it look like at least Noriko has perished due to it. It is here that Shikishima falls into despair, not taking much care of his child, and deciding that he must do what is right inside of him. He must finish his duty as a kamikaze pilot and crash land into Godzilla with a bomb that could destroy him. However, a much safer plan is being used to destroy Godzilla. They plan to drown him through fur bubbles. The science of all this is hard to explain, just go see the movie. Who does Shikishima encounter in the third act? Shikishima encounters the other survivor of the island, Tachibana, and he forces him to do the duty of the kamikaze pilot and sacrifice himself for his country and save them from the monster. He shows him the plane he was building in order to finish such a task. In the battle to destroy Godzilla, Shikishima lures the monster out to sea, where the Navy attempts to drown him. When the attempt fails, Shikishima crashes into Godzilla's mouth with a bomb, blowing his head up and killing the monster. Does Shikishima survive? Yes, he does. We learn that he was told about the lever to eject himself from the plane. We see this in a flashback as he sits in the cockpit of the plane. Here he is given the speech that he must live and not make a sacrifice for Japan. There is a great theme in the movie about how harsh the Japanese culture has been on people for many years and how sacrifice to one's country is actually a wrong thing. It's on full display here in these acts of bravery against Godzilla, as these men don't want to die, but they want to kill the monster. What happens in the final moments? During the battle with Godzilla, we cut back to Shikishima's home, where a caretaker watches Akikyo. She gets a telegram and is shocked while reading it. When Shikishima arrives back on land, he reunites with his daughter, reads the telegram, and learns that Nariko is actually alive and in a hospital. She says to him in the film's final moments, "Is the war inside you finally over?" Then, in the film's final shot, we see the corpse of Godzilla floating in the ocean, and it begins to regenerate.